Hey everyone, it's Mike Andes. I'm the founder of Augusta Lawn Care. We have over 170 locations around the world. Today, I'm doing a coaching call with a business owner that has about a $500,000 lawn care business. He does it completely remotely.
It's not running on all cylinders because it doesn't have a captain, and we're kind of missing that stuff.
And so we're going to be talking today of whether or not he should focus on just the lawn care, but also talk about having a position for an operations manager, how to compensate them, as well as their office manager. How do you actually get someone to be a leader when it comes to the office, sales, etc.? You take someone who's operationally sound, really, really good, maintaining, optimizing, and then you tell them, okay, we're going to grow the business. It just throws a monkey wrench in their brain and they don't like it. It's a really good coaching call. I recommend watching this one a couple times because there's so much we jump into about compensating your managers, finding great leaders, and how to do this all remotely. Just so I'm kind of brought up to speed. We have Quiet Lawn and then we have Neon. Are we rebranding Quiet Lawn over to Neon to incorporate the pest control, or are we keeping them separate?
Well, probably well, right now we moved over to rebrand the Neon to do the treatment side, so that'll be fertilization, weed control, and pest control. And I honestly don't know what I'm gonna do with Quiet Line, Mike. I want to keep it separate to possibly sell it if I can make it valuable enough in the next
Cool.
couple of years, or just keep them separate. But for now, we're trying to head towards the treatment side of the business.
Awesome.
So that's the current goal. But yeah, so now it's kind of a mix. It's kind of a mess because we've got, Quiet Lawn at the same shop doing mowing, and then, we got Neon. So I don't know. I might offer mowing and do everything under Neon because it doesn't pigeonhole me to use electric mowers. Like I'll still use the handheld stuff, but if I want to get a gas stander, I'm not really tied to, tied to what we're using.
Cool.
But okay, so an operations manager, we have a guy that already that does been doing pest control for 10 years, and he's treated lawns for that, and he's worked for us for over a year. Um, what do you look for when you screen somebody for an operations manager? Like how deep do you go? Do you do like Colby tests and stuff like that, or what are you looking for?
Yeah, like the main thing I'm looking for is what type of operations manager are they? And what is their objective? Because a lot of times people will say they want an operations manager when in reality they want a general manager to run the entire business operationally, but also do sales. And so I think clarity first on like what is his role? Is it just operations, or is he actually going to be doing estimates, doing follow-up calls? What's sort of his actual role going to look like?
It mostly the operations because we have I guess kind of a similar setup, but we have Ibrahim and a team that does sales. They close all the sales. They do the customer service. Most of our estimates are, especially for that stuff, we don't do any on-site estimates. It's all online. So it mostly just be the operation, the day-to-day operations at the shop. Managing the employees. Making sure the work gets done, holding people accountable.
Mhm.
Making sure equipment's taken care of, stuff like that.
Yeah, so I think an operations manager is the right move, especially if the business is not growing fast.
Yep.
Even if they're just focused on operations, I find if the business is growing super fast, it's a different role than someone who is maintaining or optimizing the current business. And
Okay.
so just realize that like sometimes I've lost managers when I stopped, like they were grow, 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 and then okay, let's make it profit. Let's raise prices. We're not going to hire more people. We're not going to get more trucks. We're just going to raise prices and make this more profitable. I would sometimes lose them because they liked that growth and like that hunt. And then vice versa. Sometimes if you take someone who's operationally sound, really, really good at maintaining, optimizing, and then you tell them, okay, we're going to grow the business. We need to hire more people. It just throws a monkey wrench in their brain and they
Yeah.
don't like it. So I think getting clarity on like what they would like to do, and like what their goals are is super important. If they like the more of the maintain and optimize, or if they like the grow and expand part.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Perfect. And I think where we are, kind of transitioning, I want growth, but not super rapid growth. Be nice to start, 1 to 200,000 dollars a year or more, or a little bit more than that. Start getting that growth now that we've kind of, spent some time figuring out what we want to do, and getting that down. And okay, so perfect. What would be their roles and responsibilities? Knowing that person, like what would you expect that person to do if they're there with one, two, three employees?
Yeah, like I would take every single action of the day and I'd group it into three things. One is getting the work, the second one is doing the work, the third one is greasing the gears. So basically sales, operations, and admin. It sounds like sales and admin you're basically handling for this person. So
Yeah.
it's like, what are the actual tasks that are operations are typically things that need a person in person because you already have made things outsourced in terms of admin and sales. So like it's like, what are those tasks? Anything that requires a person in person, and make sure that the work gets done. So whether that be site visits, whether that be quality control, whether that be team meetings, whether it be interviews in person for new hires, that's the checklist. And I just group every single like function of the day into those three categories. And everything in operations is what do I need to do to get the work done? Like if all
Okay.
sales stopped, the phone never rang for customer service, what would be have to get done just to get work that's currently on the schedule completed?
Okay. Okay. Perfect. Um, Okay, pay. How do you structure pay and incentives for an operations manager like that? Like what kind of base pay are you kind of seeing in our, kind of in South Carolina, North Carolina, Georgia, Florida? How are you, you know, incentivizing them, percentage of revenue, percentage of profit? How are you?
Yeah, like Charlie Munger always said, like, show me the incentive, I'll show you the outcome, right? And so this is the same thing here. It's like if you want to grow the business, you'll want to do it based upon more revenue, close ratio, and those metrics. If you're wanting to optimize for profit, we're going to do it very differently. And so ultimately, there's really three ways to do it. And one is based upon the P&L, the other one is based upon the balance sheet. So on the P&L, there's two ways to incentivize someone, either top line or bottom line. So top line is going to be you're going to be wanting growth. You want to expand the business and you just simply either give them a commission or bands of bonuses that get unlocked based upon monthly revenue. So, for
Okay,
example, on my locations, it's like, hey, you're getting a base pay and you're going to get profit sharing, but we know that's down the road because we're growing and growth
sure.
sucks cash. So what we're going to do is going to get an incentive based upon top line revenue. If you get over 20,000 a month, immediate bonus unlocked. If you go over 30,000, 40, just dollar amounts that go over to them. Some
So these
people will,
aren't percent. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
you're right. You're about to say what I was about to say. Some people will just do a straight percentage, like 3, 4, 5, 6% of top line revenue. And then I would make sure you have a conversion cycle and like, hey, that's for the first 2 years, and then it converts into profit sharing. Now, profit sharing comes in two forms. One, bottom line on a P&L, or secondary would be based on the balance sheet in terms of owner's distributions. And so when you look at the bottom line P&L, the reason there's the difference here is because if you have any sort of debt, it's not going to show up on the P&L in terms of anything besides interest expense. So you could have a business that's leveraged and look very profitable on the P&L, but there's no money in the bank account because the actual principal pay down is not being accounted for in the P&L. You just see interest expense, especially with 0% interest. People are like, oh, it's 0%, great. Your P&L is going to look really good. Your balance sheet's going to look horrible, and you're not going to have any money in the bank.
Yeah,
And so I would be very careful with determining, do you give profit sharing based upon the P&L, or do you give distributions, a percentage of distributions and cash in the bank? I really like the second one, especially if you're going to be remote as an absentee owner. So the first one's pretty simple, and that is like, hey, bottom line profits, end of the quarter, you're getting a percentage of that. I would only give any sort of profit sharing if the business is more stable, it's not growing quickly, there's going to be predictable profits 4 quarters out of a year. If it's only profitable for 2 quarters because you're growing so much in spring rush, etc., profit sharing starts to become like nebulous and they don't trust you because like, there's nothing to share. Um,
sure.
and then I would make the distinction between bottom line profit on a P&L versus distributable cash on a balance sheet based upon whether or not you have debt. And so if you have debt, it's a conversation to have with them. Like, hey, look, our bottom line P&L is going to look really good, but really I'm having to make all these payments for all the equipment, et cetera, to get
Sure.
started. And so the third way is my most ideal, and that is the distributable cash. And that's essentially at the end of the quarter, anything above a certain threshold of cash, we are distributing and you're getting a percentage of it. And the distributions go to the owner, as would owner's distributions typically, but a percentage of those owner distributions go back to the manager. And so I like it for the fact that it incentivizes the ultimate thing that you want down the road, which is you're able to take money out of the business.
Okay. Can we get specific with our situation and actually can you help me come up with an actual number for this person? Because
Yep.
we're like 500,000 right now. We got rid of a lot of mowing last year, kind of
Hmm.
stayed about the same, added some pest control and stuff. But yeah, debt wise, we have we do have debt. I got a $200,000 SBA loan that's at I think 3.75%, and basically $1,000 a month. And then I have a Tesla that I just bought for my use.
Hmm.
So that's about 43,000. So that's kind of our debt situation. We don't have any other debt, but that's a significant amount. But how would you, structure this? What would you be thinking base pay for this person? They're going to be spending probably 80% of their time in the field.
Yep.
He's our full-time technician, and then was thinking the rest, to doing inspections, making sure we have supplies at the shop. But I'd like to set, we waste a lot. I'd like to, we break a lot. The guys were breaking all kinds of stuff last year. I'd like to find some kind of way to incentivize him to keep costs down and have guys take care of stuff. But how would you specifically pay this
Yeah,
person
like
and structure it?
I think simplicity around the incentives is important. When you start getting in the weeds of like, okay, we're going to start tracking damage cases. Well, ultimately that just ties like really what you're saying is like I didn't make enough profit. Like I want to see
Yeah,
more money coming to me. So just incentivize the actual end result because all of that other stuff trickles down into the final result of more distributable cash for you as the owner. And
sure.
so, like at 500,000, this is a working GM. That's what we call them. This is
Yeah.
where I wanted them to spend as much time in the field as possible. So I would be tracking this every single week. And that is how many budget hours worth of work do they complete every single week? And I want that to start at 30 budget hours a week. And because 30 budget hours, assuming a 75% efficiency, is going to be 40 clocked hours full time. So for my working GMs, that's around that $500,000 marker up to 800,000. I'm expecting you to complete 30 budget hours of work in the field. Unless you have in-person estimates, I'm going to take an hour away for each one of those, or interviews with team members. I'm going to take an hour away for that. And so let's just say for us, we have in-person estimates. Let's say there's for you, it's just like a few, like site visits, something like that. Let's say there's three. And then let's say that they have to interview two people that week. Well, that's gonna be 30 minus five. I expect 25 budget hours worth of work to be completed in that week. Because what you need to do is operationalize your expectations of them doing work in the field.
Okay.
Because if you just say, hey, I want you to work in the field and you also need to do all these other tasks, what will happen is they will do all these other tasks
Yeah.
and be very inefficient, and the actual work getting done will not happen.
Okay.
And so you want to operation on a weekly basis. You're going to have that meet in your meeting with them, and you're tracking. Okay, we were going to track the efficiency of the business, but also these are the expectations: 30 budget hours of completed work a week, and then we subtract out for any in-person visits with customers or interviews with employees. And you could also do something around training if they're training them. And then we have an established benchmark of how much work we expect to get done, and then it's pretty easy to be able to pay off their salary with the amount of work that they get completed actually doing work in the field.
Okay. Um, we're pretty good at calculating budgeted hours for mowing. It's a little bit more simple. Found it much more complicated with fertilization and weed control to calculate and like pest control to calculate budget hours. Do you have much of that with your businesses, or do you have a better formula to kind of, you know, figure
Yeah,
that out?
like
Because
Yeah,
it's,
like
it's,
ultimately figuring out budget hours for mowing is simply I'm going to take how much revenue I'm making, divide that by my labor rate that I'm targeting, and come up with budget hours. The same thing is true with weed control, et cetera, and pest control. It's just a function of there is going to be inherent product cost baked into that price, and it's going to be a lower percentage that I'm going to give giving the employee because there's product cost, higher customer acquisition cost, lower lifetime value typically compared to something where I'm going every single week and it's 50, $60 per. And so you might give 30% of labor revenue on a mowing route to the customer or to an employee on P4P. You might only give 10 to 15% on a recurring pest control or spraying application. And so I would just yes, it's going to be like there's more variability, etc. But you can come up with the number. And it's like, okay, if someone is going to complete 6 budget hours of mowing in an 8 hour clock day, how many, if I just do, you can just look back in time, like, okay, the last 3 months, and look at every single person and see how long they were taking the route and calculate approximately the budget hours and come up with a rate per hour, which is going to be much higher than your mowing. That's what I would be doing. Is like that hourly rate is probably looking if your mowing is $100 an hour, your application could be 150, could be $200 per hour that you're going to come, okay, backtrack the dollar amount to a budgeted hour because ultimately you're still selling time.
sure, sure. Okay, perfect. No, we got, yeah, and I think we have that, or as far as our rate for that and stuff. Okay.
To
Next,
answer your question more directly, Michael, I think your base pay you got to be at least at 60 grand a year.
even
Um,
in our area,
it's
you think?
actually mandated now. It's government. As of January 1st, you can't pay less than 58,000 on salary for this kind of position.
Wow.
So I think it's 58,600 or something. So usually 60 is what you're going to need to get someone even interested if they had any experience because they want like some sort of foundational guarantee. And then incentives on that, the business you want to usually get that to where like, if the business is firing all cylinders, they grow this thing, it's way more profitable. That should be able to get to 100K, assuming they hit all these benchmarks. So that's why it's like, okay, I'm going to bake in some revenue incentives based upon growth. I'm going to then more long term bake in distributable cash incentives. And for me, Michael, like if I'm remote and I'm never having to work in the business, I'm willing to give up to 50% of distributable cash. But that means me never being there. And so I work my way down from 50 down to 5% based upon my involvement. So if you're showing up every day, that might be like 15%, right? If you're showing up every week, maybe it's 20%. But if you literally are involved in hiring, buying decisions, they handle everything, that number can flex up. And so this allows you to actually bake into their compensation model. Hey, as you take more off my plate, and I don't have to be there as often, and you're hitting these KPIs, your percentage of distributable cash goes to the point where you are literally making every dollar I make out of the business, you're getting 50 cents of it.
Okay. Okay, good. And calculating that distributable cash is just looking at the balance sheet every quarter and
So what we do, and you can adjust this, like you just need to set what the threshold is for distributable cash. What I mean by that is over what dollar amount do we actually consider cash in the bank distributable? For example, what we do is we say, hey, over the past quarter, the past 3 months, what's the average monthly revenue? Let's say it's 40,000, 50,000, and 60,000 revenue per month. Well, the average would be 50,000. At the end of that quarter, I am going to take anything over $50,000 in the bank and consider that distributable cash. Let's say there's $70,000 in the bank. Well, now there's $20,000 of distributable cash. Let's say I'm giving one third of that to the general manager, one third of distributable cash. That person's going to make $6,333 or whatever it is. And that's going to be their distributable cash, their bonus. And then you're going to make the 14.
okay. Okay, no, that makes sense. That's a lot better way to do it with actual cash. I like that. Okay, so we
But
set our
isn't
minimum
that challenging
baseline.
if you do, monthly billing because you are getting paid late for services you're doing? So doesn't that get complicated a bit?
Yeah, great one, Abraham. So, what we do is we do the fifth of the month. So, for example, instead of doing January 1st through April 1st, we do January 5th through April 5th. So that way, if you do monthly billing and you bill on the last day of the month or the first day of the month, you'll get all that money into the cycle.
Okay. Um, no, I think that's good. And I mean, this would be based on actual, I mean, we just, like we do, Ibrahim, we did be actual revenue generated, not, not accounts receivable or not based on the monthly amount, but what we actually did. But that would set it off a little bit because, we put everybody on a 12-month contract for every service.
Yeah, like
Um,
what I kind of recommend, Michael, if you're trying to, hey, I want to grow, but I want to incentivize this person long term, is you simply say, hey, I'm going to give you two incentives. One of them is going to be valid for 36 months, and the other one is the main objective. And it's like, hey, for the next 36 months, if you hit these revenue markers per month, you get an immediate bonus, or you get a commission off the top, some sort of revenue incentive, because you want them to grow. You need them to grow the business. But then also, from day one, any distributable cash of this percentage, you will be able to get. When I take a dollar out, you get 15 cents, whatever it might be. But that starts to go up as you take things off of my plate. Because the eventual goal is
okay.
that you take distributions and do nothing in the business. And so we don't want the incentives around revenue to eclipse the incentives around distributions, though. So be
Okay.
very careful. Because if you just incentivize revenue so much, they'll just always want to grow the business
Yeah,
and
yeah,
there'll
yeah.
never actually be any distributable cash.
No, that's good. And I mean, I'm not involved in all of the business now. So this, I'm involved very little. Um,
One
Goodness.
thing to keep
Okay.
in mind
So,
too, Michael, when you do distributable cash, you will need to basically open up the books to them very openly because they'll need to know that there's debt payments coming out. Because otherwise, they're gonna look at their P&L and be like, I'm way more profitable. But in reality, you're probably gonna have $24,000 a month or $24,000 a year difference simply because there's debt payments coming out, and that's gonna be the difference between your profit on your P&L versus distributable cash. So
okay.
you'll have to open up the books to them if you do open based upon distributable cash.
Okay. So talk to me about this 58,000. It was what, 38 or 39,000? This just got raised to 58,000 if you got a full-time manager.
Yep,
Is
if
that
they're on
correct?
salary. Yep, if they're on salary.
So the guy we have now, is he makes probably what, 40, 45, Ibrahim, I would guess. He's our
Yeah.
technician. But we only, it's so he makes 40 or 45 right now.
You could keep him an
Um,
hourly then. You could keep him an hourly. That's fine. It's just if you switch him to salary, because what they're wanting, they don't want people to do is have a $30,000 salary and working 50 hours a week, right? Because people are taking advantage of it. So they're raising this to basically keep people from going into salary. So you could keep this person hourly and still do all these same incentives. It's not a bad move.
would you, I mean, would you just keep him like a P for P hourly employee for like 30, or saying he's got to do a minimum of 30 hours in that, and then say the other 10 hours is some kind of hourly base pay?
Yeah,
And then
that'd be fine.
do the cash incentive on top of that.
Yep, I think it'd be good. I would probably, honestly, if I was you, Michael, I would probably just be, hey, you're getting an hourly rate because this is the challenging part with an operations manager. Even when they're out doing work in the field, they're gonna have to be contacting other people. They're gonna have
Yeah.
to contact the office. They're gonna touch with Abraham. So like, I would just make it, hey, you make X amount per hour flat, plus you have to get the 30 budget hours a week done. So you're gonna bake in P for P into the fact that you know this work has to get completed.
Okay. No, that's better. Yeah, because I mean, yeah, I mean that would just be. I mean, well, right now, like we're only doing 500,000, but we do it with two FTEs, like less than two employees. Like he's by himself right now. We did that with two people
Yep.
last year. So because we've spread the work out and we've got good Christmas light business, and we're moving towards the higher margin stuff. So it's not like he's managing three or four guys.
Mhm.
But I would like to get to that. But yeah, definitely to jump from 40, 45,000 to 80 or 100 is a huge jump. So
Yeah, I'd keep on hourly. I would make sure I'd probably be like $25 an hour. That's gonna get him around 50, so there's no downside for him. And by getting that $25 an hour, we expect these gets to 30 budget hours of work done a week, minusing out any in-person visits or training and interviews. And then you just know you kind of baked P for P into that by expecting the 30 budget hours. And if they're not hitting that benchmark, they potentially get a lower rate. So it's like, hey, if you're not getting above 30 budget hours for 3 weeks straight, you go down just to make sure that there's an incentive for them to actually hit that benchmark. And then it keeps it simple. It's like, hey, you're getting paid per hour. You're expected to do this amount of work and all these other tasks. And when you're doing these other tasks, you're getting paid this $25 an hour.
okay. And what percentage would you probably do top line for that to incentivize some growth?
I would be looking at your your capacity limits for the business. So, for example, what's like your best month last year in revenue?
It'd probably
Maybe
be
Go ahead,
November and
Abraham.
October. Yeah, November
just
and October because of the Christmas light revenue we got, plus the prepays. I don't know if that counts as revenue because
no.
it distribute throughout the whole year, but yeah, I would say October and November.
And is that around 50, 60,000, Abraham?
Yeah, we got around 80K in November and around 60K, I think, in October.
So what you could do, Michael, is you say, hey, okay, we know based upon our fixed expenses and keeping this one person busy, we probably need to make about $25,000 a month to break even. Anything, I would then just do layers above that. Okay, if you hit 40, if you hit 50, if you hit 60, if you hit 70, if you hit 80, there's just dollars amount at the end of the quarter or at the end of the month, we're just going to give you as a bonus. So they're just
Okay.
incentivized to grow that, like keep going,
So,
like get it to
so instead of
100.
like doing like a 2% revenue or something like that, or two or three.
Either one works, right? It's just a matter of like, do you want them to actually, this is the reason I like the tiers, is because if they're at 58,000, I want them to make sure they go get the extra job done on the 31st, because I want them to like be incentivized to get to that
Okay.
next 60. So I also don't want to give them 2% of, let's just say I'm only doing 25,000 that month. I don't want to give them a percentage when I'm not making any money. So
Yeah.
I like to have like a 0 point, and then it goes above, and I would make the 0 point your break even.
That's a good. So yep. So the break even, the percent, even if I did a percentage above breaking, but you said the tiers. Yeah, doing tiers. I like that.
So like when I'm trying to grow, like I generally know that if I'm having a general manager and they got like a storage unit and maybe a employee and a truck or two, if I don't make more than 20,000 a month in revenue, I'm going to lose money. So I just start their revenue incentives based on 20,000 a month in revenue and up.
Okay. Okay. No, that's perfect. Um, okay. So break on even on that, and then obviously do the cash on hand, or what's said on the
Distributable cash.
distributable cash bonus as well on quarterly. Um,
And you can just be honest with them, like, hey, at the beginning, there's not going to be a lot of distributable cash. We're growing the business. We're going to have to buy another truck. We're doing a lot of advertising, but the goal is to move towards us over time. And you can make it really juicy for them to know like the eventual goal is that you take money out of the business. And the reason I like this, Michael, is you want them excited for you to take money out of the business.
Yeah,
Like that is your whole goal. You don't want to be
sure.
there. So you want things taking off of your plate. So I incentivize the percentage of distributable cash based on my involvement. And then I want them to be like, hey, please take a couple $1,000s out of the bank. You want that.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Oh, that's perfect. That'll incentivize them to keep costs down and not break stuff and buy a bunch of stuff we don't need. Okay.
Exactly.
Okay, perfect. All right, let me get back to my
Or
question.
get debt on equipment and then it doesn't show on the P&L. Because that's what I
Oh,
see
yeah,
all the time with GMs that are based upon just the bottom line profit on a P&L is they can go get 0% interest and never actually see any impact to their profit sharing and getting all this equipment. So
sure. Okay, perfect. So second thing we're working on is an office manager, a virtual office manager. What we have a good person in mind too. She's in Colombia, South America. But what do you look for in that type of person to somebody? Because Ibrahim and I, we're working on other stuff. I have a couple other businesses, but neither one of us are a good leader or good at holding people accountable or getting stuff done. I'd say we're probably operating at 50% efficiency with everything we do because there's just no leadership in the field. There's no, we don't, the kind of everybody does their own thing. That's kind of the challenge we have. We need somebody here that's going to be a leader, and we need somebody, I think, with the office manager role. What are you looking for in that person? Like when,
well, I think the thing to be careful of is, obviously them being overseas, it's going to be cheaper. It's also going to take more of your time to manage and train them, right? And there's going to be turnover in that role as well. And so, like, I think, at 500,000, you definitely want to be growing to $800,000 marker in order to be
yeah,
able to just afford a operations manager, afford this office person. And then your
sure.
time, even though it won't show up on the P&L, is at a cost to the business to train this person, manage them, etc. Yours and Ibrahim. So, um, I would be hesitant to think that they're going to have any sort of leadership skills. I think that's your operations manager, like in terms of
Okay.
in person with the team as you grow the business. They're going to be the leader. That's the person you're compensating heavily for. You have a lot more incentives around the overall business. I think when you look at office manager or even just office person, I'm going to be looking more at the inputs. So like whether it be close ratio, whether it be amount of the upsell, whether it be like what are the things that they actually can do to change the business? Because they are going to be less able to change the efficiency of the crew. They're going to be less able to be able to do a lot of aspects that actually are going to show up in the bottom line. But what they can do is increase close ratio. They can upsell customers so they're not $1,000 a year, they're $2,000. So like I would be incentivizing all of the things that they can actually do to meaningfully change the business, if possible.
Okay, so how would I guess specifically, so knowing how we kind of operate and that they kind of handle all the admin side and the sales side. Um, we're obviously, it's going to obviously change by the country, but if we're paying say maybe $1,000, $1,500 base salary, what would you how else would you incentivize them for those things? Would it be revenue? Would it be like you said, close ratio, stuff like that? But how else would you incentivize that person to do the right activities?
Yeah, like the challenging part is at 500,000, even if you pay someone, $18,000 a year, is it just the base, like 18,000, right? It's still a enough revenue. And then, well, I'm actually most concerned about your time managing them. I think it becomes all of a sudden goes from 3.5 to 4% of revenue going to this person to very quickly 10% because your time in managing and training them. And then your operations manager dealing with them every single day. So like they will either grease like again, admin is greasing the gears. And so what again in those categories of sales, operations, admin, it's greasing the gears, running payroll, checking the email, doing voicemail, answering the phone, all these other things. And so how do we actually measure that is usually going to come a function of actually what is their percentage of the revenue in the business that they are taking. And so I would make it much more like if you have one person doing all these things, which I think is 500,000, you don't even need a full-time person doing this, but like let's assume the business grows 800,000, that you're putting more on their plate. I think that it'd be much more around like incentivizing their efficiency is what like you could literally give them a percentage of revenue. Like if you say, hey, we're gonna be 3% of all the revenue. So at 3% of 500,000, that's $1,500, $15,000 a year. right? You could give them a flat percentage, and then as the revenue grows, and then it's like, hey, you must complete all of these tasks, and if it takes you 4 hours in a day, that's fine. But you've got to do all of these things in order to earn this 3% or 4% or whatever you're giving them. But the inherent cost that will not be tracked, and this is the part I'm very cautious about when it comes to remote, is your time managing them. It's never calculated. It doesn't show up in the P&L. Everyone's like, I'm only spending like 4 or 5% of revenue on my virtual staff, but then they're spending 3 hours a day managing them, and your
Sure.
time is far more valuable. And so now all of a sudden you have an owner not producing revenue, you have a virtual person, and you have an operations manager, and that on a $500,000 business will never be profitable.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so that's the part to be careful of. I would say though, if they're managing all office and all admin, and they have full control of a lot of like the admin functions of the business, and you're also expecting them to create SOPs so that if they ever bailed, it's all documented for someone else to pick up. If that's their role, I would probably give them a percentage of revenue, and then and then like a base that can't go below. So for example, we say, hey, you can't make less than $1,000 a month, but you're going to make 3% of all revenue.
Okay.
And you know that that's going to look around 50. You could just say like last year we made $500,000. That'd be $15,000. But in exchange for that, we expect all of these things to be done every single day, all of these things done every week, and all of these things done every month. If these are not done, you will not get that incentive above your base pay.
Okay. And just to give you some more info, so that, they do handle Flatline, but they also handle, we offer, the virtual support to a handful of other lawn care businesses. That's kind of another little business that we're growing.
Right.
So there's a team of what, 5 or 6. I mean, a lot of them are part-time. We got like a graphic designer, we've got a customer service person, we've got, some different little roles there, but I don't know if that, but part of their role would be just managing those people and holding them accountable. I'm
Got
just kind
it.
of trying to figure out how we would, how we would structure that since they're all virtual and, um,
Yeah. So it sounds like they're going to be managing things outside of just this one, like your business. They're going to be
yep, yep,
managing the
yep,
people. So then it's a function of like, I would just be looking at it as a department, right? I wouldn't even look at the business, like the $500,000 business, because like you're actually managing other businesses. You basically
yep.
you set this command center over the past 5 or 10 years. And so I would be looking at that as a department. So all the revenue coming to that command center, all the time that you would bill to your business,
Yep.
you'd be billing them like you would a regular business, that the manager should be getting a piece of that. Nothing to do
Okay.
with your business. Because again, they can't control operations. They can't control the efficiency. They don't even really control the lead flow because they're not spending, they don't make decisions on marketing. And so I would treat your command center as the incentives around that. So based on revenue, same thing, based on revenue, based on profitability, I'd be giving them incentives if you're expecting to manage the agents that are serving other businesses as well as your own.
Okay.
And
Okay.
I treat your business just like ever. So like my locations, for example, they get treated the exact same as all the other locations, and they pay money to command center, same
Sure.
exact way. And
Yep.
then the leadership there gets incentivized based on that.
Okay. And we set it up like that. So, yeah, and, still Quiet Line's by far the main, main contributor to that. But, so they primarily be running, the day. Like you said, we're just basically, selling our services to Quiet Lawn and the other lawn care, other companies that we're working for. Um, okay, so that makes sense. How do you? I like obviously basing it on revenue or basing it, we do like sales commissions if they close a sale or something like that. But how do you what reverse incentives do you have to keep them from just selling and not selling, overselling the services, kind of your true green kind of stuff where they're just selling the moon and just to get a commission, and then we're not able to live up to those expectations with a customer. How do you kind of keep them from just chasing revenue?
Yeah, like the bottom line is, especially if you're serving other businesses, if you don't do a good enough job, they'll leave. And so if you ultimately lose customers, i.e., other businesses that you are serving in this virtual service, um, they should be making less money. And because so if they're doing that and they're chasing the commission, no question, the businesses that are paying you, is that a flat monthly fee or is that based upon a sale? Are they giving you commission?
Yep, both.
It's
Yeah, it's a play
marketing.
plus commission,
Got it. So like,
Mhm.
then your incentives are relatively aligned. If they're giving you a commission based upon a sale, it simply comes down to like their satisfaction. So I would probably be incentivizing your manager based on the satisfaction of the people you're serving, including your operations manager at Neon or Quiet Lawn. Like I would be like, hey, you're gonna get a a survey, and you're also going to get metrics, and those metrics of satisfaction to the people we serve from the quote unquote command center is also going to play into your incentives. So I would make it say it's revenue, it's profitability, but then both of those are levered on something like a CSAT score, customer satisfaction. Um, and so you could do that, because then if that number goes down, it's likely they're being less satisfied because either A, they're not closing enough, or B, they go so hard for the sale, they're doing bad customer service. So you want your manager to have a more holistic incentive package. If you just do it based upon sales, which is more like your frontline agents, which is fine, I'm okay with that. But if you lose out on the quality aspect, which the manager needs to be holding training and customer service and doing reps and doing coaching calls with each rep, et cetera, they need to be incentivized on customer satisfaction. And so
Right.
for us, it's like if franchisees are leaving and they're not using our service as a command center, that's like a demerit. Like we did something wrong. And so we are surveying, like, how can we improve? How can we make this better? What satisfaction? Which departments are you happy with? Which services inside a command center are you happy with? Because that is the true indicator from a manager's perspective of the success of the department.
Okay. Ibrahim, do you have specifics as far as more?
No, I don't. I just wanted to, one question I wanted to ask is, like you said, the operational manager, and then you have the office manager. How does the communication kind of, or who's above who in your case? Who's above in the hierarchy in your case?
It just depends how you want to set it up. Like, I think that if you look at sales, operations, and admin, right now, really your virtual team is doing operation or sales and admin. It's probably going to look like you have an office manager, you have an operations manager, and then you're above them, and they both report to you. Now, the thing is, they're gonna have to communicate on a daily basis quite consistently. So either A, you have one of them slightly above the other, probably your operations manager because they have boots on the ground, and you're also incentivizing them based on distributable cash. They'd probably be the ones that I would look to as the person to make calls for the business. The reason is also because your office manager, you're incentivizing them based upon something totally different, which is like the command center. Like all these other entities using the services, they should be focused on making a really good command center as an office person. Whereas the operations manager should be making all the business decisions for Quiet Lawn. That would be my recommendation. Like that way your incentives they're aligned. Like, hey, over here, command center, I want to serve Quiet Lawn as best as I possibly can because my incentives are aligned with them being satisfied. Over here, I'm making business decisions from an operations manager perspective on distributable cash, right? If you start incentivizing or saying like even that the office manager has any sway of what the operations manager does, now the operations manager is like, well, why should they care about what my business is doing? They have no incentive based upon what I'm incentivized on, which is distributable cash. And so I would keep them separate. I would let the operations manager be kind of like the final say on things.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. All right. So, uh, that was kind of a challenge, Mike. Getting, it's kind of a challenge, especially not having leadership for me in the field, is getting, there's a lot of communication that doesn't happen between, the guys didn't get a lot of information because it's hard to get that, have someone that gets that information from, Ibrahim and the guys over there to the team. What kind of stuff do you have in place to keep that communication between, keep everybody on the same page with your virtual remote command center and then boots on the ground? I know you do meetings every morning, but is there other systems you have in place to keep everybody on the same page as far as what we're doing?
Yeah, so like I think from your perspective or Ibrahim, whoever these people are reporting to, your operations manager and your office manager, who are they reporting to? You, Abraham, what's that structure look like above them?
Right,
Ibrahim, really.
yeah, everyone reports to me right now.
Yeah.
So
Got it.
we are looking to set up the operations manager role this year to kind of separate that.
Yeah.
Yep.
And then the
So
office
then
manager.
Yeah, so I would probably be having a weekly operations manager and Ibrahim conversation. This is going to be a scorecard. It's going to look based upon like, hey, operations is budget hours, how many estimates have been sent out, what your close ratio is, revenues, profits, like just on a weekly cadence, especially around the budget hours because we want them to be in the field as much as possible. Um, That'd be like the kind of weekly cadence. Then the monthly cadence is more financial, right? So that's when we're gonna actually look at profits and the actual dollars and cents, how much cash is in the bank. That's gonna be much more like marketing strategy, hiring, etc. The weekly ones are very operational. I just want to stay focused on, are they being efficient? These are 10 to 15-minute meetings. I'm having a one-page scorecard that they have to fill out prior to that meeting to a scheduled time every single week, usually Monday morning. And then the monthly one is like, okay, let's look at the P&L from last month. Let's look at what we're looking like in terms of distributable cash. What are we going to spend on marketing? What are we at in terms of capacity? Could we get 10 more customers without having to buy another truck? Is everyone only working 30 hours a week and we could put some more on their plate? That's more of a monthly basis. And then the quarterly one is very easy because it's like everyone wants to know how much money did I make last quarter. And we're looking at distributable cash, we're looking at the revenue increases, et cetera. And so I just like to have that weekly, monthly, and then quarterly kind of cadence for those reports. And I would do the exact same thing with your office, right? It's like, okay, what percent, what was our close ratio on the phone? What was our CSAT rating from our customers, including Quiet Lawn? What was our satisfaction scores? That would just be like a regular cadence. And then also looking at what percentage of time the reps are actually on the phone doing billable time for. The same way we look about efficiency score in the field, I want to know the efficiency score in the office. It's going to be much lower than guys out in the field because they're not going to be on properties for 20, 30 minutes at a time. It's usually going to be between 30 and 60% efficiency score for someone in the office because they're switching tasks every minute or two. So there's much less time that is actually spent that's billable.
Mike, if you
Okay.
want to continue, I'm getting a call about our alarm getting
Yeah,
triggered.
just I don't know if Tony's. Sorry, Mike. We're getting our alarm at the shop. Don't know if somebody's
Oh, you could take your
uh,
time. You're good.
a security alarm at the shop. Okay, so other staff, like we have different roles, like in the office. Like we have graphic designers, or a graphic designer. We have somebody that does Facebook and marketing ads. Like, how do you incentivize maybe a customer support? I mean, I guess they would be doing some sales too, so they would get commissions. But how do you incentivize the people that aren't directly in sales? Maybe they're doing graphic design for social media posts, or they're doing, placing our Facebook ads. How would you kind of incentivize those people, or do you have those roles?
Yeah. First off, I would say, like for the command center side of things, what's the total revenue per year? Are we talking like 200,000? Are we talking like a million? Like what's the size and scope of this? Like
Very
all
small.
revenue.
Very
We just
small.
talked last year, we're still small. I
Yeah.
think last year we did around 65K.
Okay, 65K for the whole year. So I would get laser like focused on one service because by doing everything for someone, you're just not going to be able to create metrics around paying and compensating people because like it's not a full-time job to do posting. They're also having to answer the phone. They're also having to run payroll. They're
Yeah.
doing all these things. It's impossible to incentivize them. And that's the reason why most office and admin people are just paid hourly flat and you can't really incentivize because like, well, if I give people a percentage or some sort of commission around close ratio, well, then really it's whoever takes the phone call is going to get more money versus like I also need them to also do these other tasks. Whereas if I have a commission based upon close ratio or upsells, for example, I can then say, okay, you're on the phone all day long. Your incentive is based upon these things. Versus right now, it's very difficult to create an incentive around like posting or like number of impressions. Like these are just very nebulous things because if they just put a weird, wacky picture, it will get more impressions. It will get more shares. It will get more likes. But is that really good for the brand in the long term? And so I would be really inclined at that size of a command center to be like, we're going to do one thing and we're going to do it well. Because by doing that, you'll increase your CSAT scores for that service. And so what I would personally do if I was you, because this is what we just recently did with our owners, is we literally surveyed them like, hey, if we could only offer for you probably two things or three things, which is the most valuable of the services we offer to you? And cut everything else.
Okay.
Because if you got really good at those things, the customer satisfaction would go way up because you spend all your time on training your crew or your team around that. And you'd be able to create incentives for your team based upon metrics that they do all day long versus very sporadically going around and trying to figure stuff out.
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay.
Like if you
Um,
looked at this, and by the way, you possibly might not even need to survey them. You could literally just look at the 65,000, was 50,000 of it this one thing? If so, we should probably just do that and cut out this whole like social media management and all these other things that we're doing. Because like right now you're considering admin as like one big bucket, but there's probably email management, payroll, answering the phone. Like there's probably 50 things inside of that. And so breaking all of that down, like, because as you scale, like it's extremely difficult to operationalize. And that's the struggle we've had. We have like 20 some odd departments. It's like, okay, we sent a survey out and we looked at like what are people actually using? And they literally matched perfectly what people wanted on the survey and then versus what are they actually using? What they're voting with their dollars every month. So it's
what
like
is it
if
they want? What were those
it's it's
things they wanted?
it's phone calls, it's sending out estimates, and it's communication on a daily basis.
Okay.
And so, there's 5 of the 20 something tasks, we're going to come out because like there's such a small percentage that even want it on a survey. And two, from a revenue perspective, they're voting every month with their dollars. They don't want the service as much as these other ones. So instead of trying to focus on like this small thing, I'm going to take the big one that's working and I'm going to make it super, super good and increase their customer satisfaction scores because I'll be able to spend all my time training my team on that.
Sure, sure. No, that's good. Mike, what other advice do you have, or is there any, I mean, yeah, what other advice can you give us, or,
Yeah, I think based upon like knowing a little about your background, Mike, and your guys' relationship too, like I would really encourage specialization. You have a lot of things in the fire, and they're all doing little
yeah,
chunks of revenue. And I think
yeah,
if you took your top two or three, if you say, okay, like out of all these ventures, whether it be the command center, quiet lawn, other things that we're doing, neon, okay, these are all little things. If I just focus on one or two of them, would I actually double the size of those and then completely outshadow all these little things that we're doing? Like $65,000 is what you made in 3 weeks in October. It's
yeah,
like, is it worth all this time and energy doing this thing for 65 grand? And if the answer is like, well, it's more of a long-term play, okay, great. Get really good at two or three things that is currently making you 50,000 of that 65 and triple that because you get actually exceptional at it. Like, it's very difficult to be exceptional at 50 different things.
yeah,
And the difference between building $1 million business and a 50,000 or $100,000 business is you getting exceptional at it. It's very difficult to exceptional at 50 things.
yeah,
So I would really take this at several layers. One, the broad like Michael Reed
yeah,
ventures.
sure,
And then I would zero in on each of these ventures and be, okay, are we offering 30 services that should really be five that we could get really good at? And because of that, the customer satisfaction goes up and then everyone talks about it. Because
sure,
we're at that size, we're not good enough at doing everything for people to talk about and refer you to other people. That no
sure,
one's banging down the door because you're not good enough. Like if we just the brass tacks it, we're not good enough. And this is what we say to us. Like the reason people don't use these services is we're not good enough at them. So instead
yeah,
of trying to like beat ourselves up and put people into way more training and diversify and get more management, we're just simply going to cut things out so we can focus on the things they like.
sure. Yeah, I think, I do need to, I have a lot of, coals or irons in the fire. I've got, the kickboxing school too that I teach at night, which is, I'd say that's more a passion thing. Like, I mean, that's helped me get refocused. I've lost like 25 pounds. It's like helped me like get I don't know. That's good for my spirit. I know it's not I know it's a distraction and it takes away from. It is growing. I mean, it's like $100,000, but I mean, it's still tiny, but it's growing. But um, it has taken attention away from Quiet Lawn and Neon. To do that, but I think I just got really burnt out with Quiet Lawn and Neon these last few years, and I've just kind of put my head in the sand and kind of hit away. And, now I need to, and I had to deal with some other personal stuff and, other stuff going on, health issues and, family stuff and like that. But, I know I need to be a lot more involved because, I have, it has been good to be able to, have a business that runs without me because I haven't had to go in the field in a couple of years, but it's not running on all cylinders because it doesn't have a captain and we're kind of missing that stuff. So I do need to figure out how I can get remotivated to love that business again and put some time into it because I know if I did we could really um, make some good gains.
Yeah, like what I would say, Michael, is my struggle is as with most entrepreneurs is like you want the next thing because it is so fun to get started. Like zero
Yeah,
to 100,000 and anything is just so much fun. You get a new entity, you're reaching out new customers, new service offering, it's new systems you have to put in place, new websites, new
sure.
entities. It's fun. What
Yeah,
I would try to pivot your attention towards and your passion for is instead of new stuff is just like optimize what you currently have. Because if you
okay.
take any of these businesses, any one of them, like flip a coin on them, and you just focused all your time and energy on it and made it like exceptional, because
Yeah,
they're probably 8 out of 10 services. Like so what I mean is like if I had to uh survey all of your customers from all your different entities. They're probably like, man, Michael's a great guy. Abraham's great. They do a good job. Probably get 8 out of 10. But the difference between 8 out of 10 and 9.5 out of 10 is a 10x difference in the
yeah,
size of that business.
yeah, absolutely.
Like you do $1 million worth of kickboxing if you were the best in your state.
Yeah,
You would triple the size of the quiet lawn if you were the best lawn care service and you're super efficient and you're charged the highest price and you had a great operations manager and you focused all of your time and energy on getting that person and training them up and making sure they're in the systems and quantifying their KPIs. Like, and so I would really try to divert your attention from like, I need to create new things when I get distracted, like, because you're going to get distracted, because you're going to want to do other stuff. Okay. I'm going to take all that time and attention that I put towards new stuff and just do better at what I'm currently doing and making it from that 8 to the 9.5 because it is a 10x lever on the size of that business when you go from 8 out of 10 because everyone's 8 out of 10. Any operator where like there's a small business is usually an 8 out of 10 compared to like a big massive corporation that has 1,000 employees. No one knows anyone's name. People forget stuff all the time. They're like a 6 out of 10. They get the job done. No one knows anything. They forget stuff. Like you're an 8 out of 10. But the difference between 8 out of 10 and 9.5 out of 10 is literally a 10x of the business. And so you are
Yeah,
not going to be 9.5 out of 10 on all these different things. I just be like,
sure.
which two of these, if, because this is the other thing, by having the two combined, like for example, the remote thing, the 65,000 with the quiet lawn, 50,000, if that $560,000 makes up 70% of the revenue of all these entities, I would cut everything else out, knowing that those two things together can make a $1.5, $2 million business.
Sure.
And then the question is like, will the kickboxing become that? And I say, hey, look, you can do kickboxing. It just might not be a business. It might
Yeah,
be things you're passionate about, you love, it's really good for your health, but we don't need to make a business around it.
sure. Yeah,
And then
no,
by taking away those complexities, Ibrahim and his team are able to be way better at training around a smaller vertical and get really good at it. Whether it be upselling lawn services, upselling them into pest control. Like these are things that if you spread them too thin, they're just not going to be exceptional at it.
sure. No, I agree. Yeah, that's a big challenge. Yeah, brought on by me. We're doing way too many things, and it's way too complicated.
Oh,
Um,
anything else I can help with?
Abraham, do you have
Um,
anything else?
yeah, we have one more question about H2B workers. Do you have any experience with hiring H2B workers for lawn care, lawn mowing, stuff like that?
For my personal businesses, no, but for a lot of people I've talked to, yes. Um, I think that your operations manager would need to have some experience working with this kind of program, if you're going to use it. A lot of times, once you actually do go through the legal process, et cetera, you house them, et cetera, the costs are not as different as you might think. What you're getting usually is a worker that's very motivated. They're going to show up, they're going to work, hustle, et cetera. And
Yeah,
so if you go through a third party, you're many times paying $28, $30 an hour, to be honest. Once you
yeah,
pay them and the person and all the fees associated with it, and you're also risking the fact that they might not show up in the spring because they can just cut visas very quickly. So like in
yeah,
2016, a lot of businesses got like all their number of visas just cut in half, and people just didn't
Yeah.
show up. And so then they had to sub everything out. So it's basically you're having a little bit less control, but as long as that operations manager, for example, could speak Spanish, is able to interact with them, has some experience with that, that might be doable. But keep in mind, if you only have two employees, for example, and an operations person, and two of them are H2B, that could be your entire workforce gone. That could be also if there's contention between those two and your operations manager because they don't get along, could also just be really, really bad. So it's just a risk, but it's also usually a more dependable seasonal, labor source. I think what's nice though is with like the Christmas lights that you guys are adding, you're adding in, you know, revenue outside of your current season. So you're going to probably start needing people year round anyways, or closer to it. And so the H2B program might not actually work well.
Well, and that's the challenge, Mike, is we've tried the year-round thing, and we try to add other services because our season is really short here in South Carolina because just where we are geographically and the type of grass we have, like our mowing season's really sucks. I wouldn't. I mean, you're lucky to get 20, 25 cuts a year, even weekly, if we offered weekly. But um, so we've added the Christmas lights and other stuff, but even though we keep people in the off season, we always end up keeping them through they either leave at the end of the Christmas light season
Yeah.
because even if they're getting paid, or they like wait until the spring and then they leave and you paid them all winter for nothing, to sit
Yep.
around. So that's the challenge we keep getting is it's hard to keep people mowing more than a year. Like we keep our technician, spray technician, they stay for, multiple years, but the mowing person, like they'll last like one season and then that's it. Like, I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, like you could definitely do say, hey, we for 2, 3 months of the year, you're not going to get work. You get a return to work bonus. If you work the spring rush, you get $2,000 or something, some sort of return to work bonus. I would say if you can keep people for an entire year on average, that's not bad. So it's a matter of how do we make the business model in a way that those people are still profitable and you don't keep them year round. So when you're hiring, it's like you set the expectation. You're going to be off for 3 months. During those months, it's also retail is like they can get a job anywhere. Just November, December, January, everyone's hiring, Amazon, etc. And so set that up for the expectation at the beginning though, so that way there's not surprises, you don't feel bad, and you don't keep them on out of just like feeling bad, and then they, like you said, they leave in March or April.
Sure, sure. No, that's a challenge. And, we can keep them through January, we can keep them March to January, but it's just getting them back or, they leave during that time because it's slow and they get bored and they start looking for stuff, even if we're giving them busy hours at the shop. And also it's just such a complicated business model because they're doing so many different things. They got to teach them how to do mulch and landscaping, got to teach them how to trim shrubs, got to teach them how to mow, got to teach them how to do Christmas lights, got to teach them. It's just that's kind of why I'm moving towards pest control and fertilization weed control because it's year-round services here and it's very simple and it's not like you said, it's just a very complex business model, which is why I think I'll eventually move towards like either phasing that stuff out or selling it off separately. But I mean, we can do it, and that's what we're doing. We're just grinding it every year, but it's always a pain in the butt because we go through 1 or 2 guys, and it's like it ends up like our least profitable service mowing ends up like running the show, and like in the middle of the summer, like we're having to take Tony away from spraying, which is profitable, very profitable, to like go mow and fill in. And it's the, most equipment that breaks down and most expensive equipment. And like, it's just, I don't know, it's just a frustrating for somebody who's not wanting to be involved in all
Yeah.
that. But,
Yeah,
you
you'll see, Mike,
know,
tomorrow actually, we're releasing a course and it's basically all the off-season stuff. There's gonna be 5 different ways to solve it. You might actually be one of the few that I would recommend lockdown mode for, which is the first version of the 5. And you'll see in the course, I'm like, hey, most people should not use version 1, but the reason it might actually work for you is because your fixed cost, you literally have probably $2,000 a month of payments every month. And I bet you're probably burning more than $2,000 a month just trying to keep people busy during the off season. So
oh
you
yeah,
might actually just go into lockdown mode, which is like, hey, for 2 or 3 months, we just don't do anything.
yeah,
So keep an eye on that tomorrow because there's like 5 different routes to solve the off season, and you might be one of the few that I would actually recommend lockdown mode for, because your fixed expenses, like you literally probably have $1,000 in the SBA, maybe another $1,000 in the Tesla, and then if you have like some other fixed, you don't have like a expensive shop space. All the people that are working overseas are going to be able to do other services for other companies. I would probably try to get other companies that are really busy during the off season, like snow, for example, because if you could do services for them, you keep your virtual crew busy doing something, and then you can let your in-person crew that sucks money typically just let them off for 3 months. So
sure.
they'll come out tomorrow. On my Canada.com, it's free, and that would actually be a really helpful thing, I think,
Okay.
to fix that problem.
Yeah, that would be awesome. No, that's good. Yeah, yeah. No, and I can keep these guys doing. They do Christmas lights, and we do really well with the companies that we help them start offering Christmas lights. So, um, so okay, yeah. I think that'd be good because that'd be less complicated. But like I said, it's always like a grind to find somebody the next season. Should if I need to hire them in like March, you start recruiting in January or when do you?
Yeah, like there's some people that like the thing is we always think that people want full time, but there's a good chance there's people have like a 3 or 4 month window. They just need a job, and it's hard to in their mind, like I can't find anyone that wants to hire for 3 months. When you're
Yeah,
like, man, that's perfect. I just need a March, April, May during spring rush. Same thing with like there are people that want 2 or 3 months off in the year, but if you set that as an expectation in the job documents, there are people that like they want that 3 month. They're gonna go back home. They're gonna go overseas. They maybe their family's out overseas. Like so, like
sure.
there are people out there. It's just a matter of putting the interviews out there, like putting the application, being very clear what the expectations are. And so a lot of like our owners, they'll be like, hey, if you come back after the off season and then work 2 months, you get $2,000 bonus. Right. So it's
Okay.
like I'm incentivizing them to come back, train up my new team in the spring rush, and that's our return to work bonus. Yeah, like the course will go over all of this and it'll be really helpful, I think. Like this one problem I think is important.
Okay, no, that's awesome. No, I appreciate it. Yeah, that helps a lot because that is a big challenge and it's frustrating. We tried the push mower model and we did it for like a year or two, but it just beat the hell out of people because it's the southeast and it's just so hot down here. It's like such a different kind of heat. It's really profitable and it's really simple, easy to train people. I love it. But do you have any successful models in the southeast or the south that are still running like push mower models? Like we went back to small zero turns. Because
Well,
it
like
just
it sounds like to me like the constraint in this business, like as it is finding people because you burn through them. But the thing is, if it's really profitable, it's really simple, and you can train people quickly. Maybe you build a business based upon them only working 3 to 6 months with you, right? Like there's nothing wrong with a business that is really profitable, really simple services, and has a temporary
yeah.
workforce. So like I think people like if the constraint of the business was we're not making money because we have to keep training people all the time, that becomes a real problem. But I don't
Yeah.
think there's a problem with a business that is very profitable, very simple. You're never there, and it runs by itself. It has low capital expenditures because you're using push mowers, and then you're in the business of training new people because you know that every 2 to 3 months you're gonna have to train someone new. But the thing is, within one day, you can get them profitable.
Well, that's good because I mean our mowing is not bad. Like we run one man crews in a Toyota Prius, and they do
Yeah.
$700-800 a day
Yep.
in
Like
revenue.
I've seen your numbers. Like I know like, it's a good model. So like instead of saying, oh man, we got to change the whole business model because we can't keep workers for more than 3 to 6 months, just build the whole model around keeping employees for 3 to 6 months.
Okay. Do
And then
you have?
if that's a real problem, if it's a real problem, you say, okay, based upon your tenure, your base pay goes up.
Okay. Are you seeing successful models with the push mower in the south, or like in the south, like in the high heat, like Florida,
Oh,
Georgia? Or
it's
is it
tough.
just
It's
tough?
gonna be really tough. You're gonna have to
Yeah.
incentivize people more. But my thing is this: everyone's like, "Well, I gotta change the model because now instead of a Prius, you're gonna get a F-250. You're gonna
Yeah.
get a big trailer. You're gonna get bigger mowers, and all of
You
a
get
sudden, you got to make $50,000 a month to break even versus 15 or 20.
Well, now we just pull a little a 4x6 trailer with a Prius, and have a zero turn on it. But like I said, like I can train everybody to, you know, edge and blow and string trim in like a week and push mow in like a day. But that zero turn might take them 2 or 3 months to get comfortable where they're not damaging property, and they're not able to use it in a lot of conditions if it's raining. Like it just complicates everything. And then having to pull a trailer, but it'd be nice to do the push mowing model, and we did it, and it was very simple. But it
Yeah,
just we just had those issues where it just beat the hell out of people, and it's just a miserable job. But we're paying them good, but it's just a
yeah.
miserable job. Nobody.
The constraint for me comes to how do we find, train, and retain employees? It's no longer like the model of the business works. So I would build your incentive program on retention. So you probably having a sliding scale of base pay so they can make more in base guaranteed as they stay longer. That's going to be helpful with retention. Um, Even if their P4P is going to be way higher, like, well, their guaranteed is going up as they just stay with me. And because
Sure.
if the constraint is retention, then just incentivize retention.
Are you push mowers? Are you using? I mean, I know it doesn't matter, but the light? Are you using just the residential Toro 30-inch? Is that what you recommend if we go back to that model? Because I'll probably use a gas mower and brand under neon to not pigeonhole us to an electric mower. Is that what you guys are using? Or are you?
It just depends. Like I think if you're using the Prius, it makes sense to use a lighter model. Every year you just get a new residential mower. They're way cheaper. If so they hit something, it never breaks. Because it's so light, they can pick stuff up and put it in the back of the Prius. Like it's super basic. So I think that model, especially with the Prius, makes sense because it's way less. The the uh the weight of it is so much lower.
Yeah.
So and then they're used to it too with the current battery. They're used to the lighter mowers.
Okay, yeah, and we like fabricated little carriers on the back where they could just drive it up onto the like a almost like a wheelchair carrier or a
Mhm.
cargo carrier on the back of the Prius. But okay, so yeah, we might revisit that Ibrahim and go back to that model because it didn't really get us. I mean, it got us people that would stay, for the full season, but it didn't really get us people that were staying multiple years with mowing. Like I know it's going to beat the hell out of them. It's going to be a young man's kind of thing. But we could be greatly simplify the mowing because it's just such a hassle to have to fix
The question is
properties,
if you
mowers.
if you put a few $1,000s more towards your team, would they stay because they're making literally $5 to $10 more per hour, or go a completely different route? Because now when you get bigger trucks and bigger equipment and bigger trailers, you're gonna need shop space. So you're again your overhead is gonna go up. You're gonna have way more maintenance. You're probably gonna need more mechanic and like it's a different business model. And so if you
It,
have a business model that works, it's profitable, then we just find the next constraint. And I think it's more of the employee side.
yeah, yeah, and like I said, the money didn't matter. Like here, like people working for like the big like commercial outfits are making 12, 13 bucks an hour, like good pay for a lawn care company is 16 to 18. Our guys are making 25 or 30, and they'd stay one season. You
Yeah,
know,
one season's not bad. I don't think that's a bad. I would
okay.
build the business model around like, hey, if we can keep 1 season, let's go. If they stay in another season, I give them more base pay. Like I would just really, really
especially
No,
if we get
one season's
H2B
not bad.
workers. That
Not
if
for
we can
that
get
side. For that, yeah, you're right.
if we can go to that model and H2B visa route, I think I think we could make a very attractive mowing business. Although it's going to be a lot more complicated than the other stuff I'm trying to get into. I think there's definitely an opportunity there, like you said.
Yeah, it's also the biggest chunk of your revenue now. Like, so if you focused on it, you'd probably solve the constraint that's there instead of spending your time on all these other things. You actually just solve the constraint and unlock growth.
Mike, thank you very much for your time. We appreciate it.
My pleasure. Good to see you, Abraham. Good to see you,
See
Mike.
you.
You guys have a good one.
But